Welcome to the Love Lounge podcast. This is not a place to learn, it's a place to land. Nothing here has to be earned, and nothing needs to be fixed. Love Lounge is an atmosphere, not a lesson. Here's your host, Laura Doughty.
Welcome to the Love Lounge podcast. I am your host, Laura Doughty. There's something I want to name before we begin. The Love Lounge podcast has been quiet for almost a year now, and that silence was not abandonment. It was actually integration. I closed 8 years and 155 episodes of the Experiment podcast so I could make room for what comes after the fire. And with Valentine's Day approaching, it just felt right to return by talking about the love that changes everything. And what I'm talking about is self-love. Not the Instagram version, not the bubble bath version, not the you can pour from an empty cup quote stitched on a pillow. I am talking about the kind of self-love that ends cycles, the kind that costs you comfort, the kind that makes you incomprehensible to people who benefited from you staying small. Self-love is initiation, not self-care. Most people misunderstand self-love because they think it's additive, something you do more of. What I've learned through fire is that real self-love is subtractive. It's what you stop tolerating, what you stop pretending, what you stop negotiating away in exchange for belonging. Carl Jung, who I have loved for I don't know how long, I've read so much of his work, and literally I moved out to California in 2001, and I had this rectangular picture frame that had multiple different squares where you could put pictures, but instead I put a bunch of different quotes. And one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung is that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. I will never forget when I first read that, typed it up so that I could put it into my frame. There were many times that just reading it irritated me. And the reason is because it puts the ownership of how we feel about somebody else back on ourselves. He mapped what we believe to be stages of feminine psychological development, not as a hierarchy, but as an evolution of consciousness. And the final stage, it has very little to do with empowerment and everything to do with self-possession. So for the first stage, Jung called this first stage Eva. This is a stage where love is earned through usefulness. You belong because you nurture. You are safe because you are predictable. You are valued because you perform the role well. The role of the mother, the role of the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who holds everything together. There is comfort here, and there is also quiet erosion. Schopenhauer described the will as a blind force that moves through us before we ever choose consciously. At this stage, desire isn't even yours, it's inherited. It's ancestral. and it's most definitely conditioned. And eventually, a question begins to rise. Is this all there is? Which leads you to the second stage, which is belonging through desire. Jung called this second stage Helena, named after Helen of Troy. Here, love is earned through being wanted. You learn how to read rooms, how to angle yourself toward approval, how to be seen. There's power here, but it's borrowed power. Alan Watts talked about how identity becomes something we wear for the gaze of others. And at this stage, worth is mediated externally. And one day, quietly or violently, you realize how fragile that kind of love is. It can be revoked, replaced, withdrawn. And something in you knows this cannot be the source. The third stage, which is belonging through goodness. This is a stage that Jung called Maria. Honestly, I'm not sure why he gave them names, but it's distracting for me. That's why I just tell you what they are. So if you want to reference them, you can. But here, love is earned through goodness. You become the understanding one, the spiritual one, and pretty much always the forgiving one. And Alan Watts warned about spiritual masks, how goodness can become a persona that hides an inner war. At this stage, self-love looks like self-erasure dressed up as virtue. And Jung was very clear. Whatever we refuse to integrate goes underground. Until one day, something breaks. That break is when self-love stops being polite. This is where most awakening stories stop. They talk about rebellion, leaving, burning it all down. Believe me, I've had so many people say to me, well, you don't want to burn bridges. That is just programming, keeping you small. But what actually happens is so much quieter than burning the bridge. You realize you've been negotiating with your own existence, bartering pieces of yourself for love that was always, always, always conditional. And that realization doesn't feel empowering. It feels like falling. The final stage, which for me is what true self-love is, it's the self-possession, you owning the space to stay true to you. Jung called that final stage Sophia, which actually the word means wisdom. I think of her as the woman who stopped leaving herself. This isn't about gaining power over others. It is about ceasing to give that power away. You stop consulting the imaginary tribunal Oh gosh, will they be upset? Oh, I, I don't want to disappoint them. Oh no, will I be abandoned if I choose myself? Those are the questions that begin to lose their grip, not because you stop caring, but because you finally locate authority inside yourself. Spinoza taught that freedom comes through understanding, through seeing the causes of our conditioning clearly enough to no longer be ruled by them. This is self-love as self-authorship. But here's the part that no one prepares you for. When you stop abandoning yourself, you become unpredictable to people who relied on you abandoning yourself. You might still choose generosity, but not compulsively. You might still choose peace, but not at the cost of your integrity. And for systems built on your self-sacrifice, this is dangerous. Not because you attack, because you no longer comply. Jung understood projection. When people call you selfish, cold, manipulative, what they're reacting to is their loss of access to controlling you. This level of self-love turns you into a mirror, not intentionally and not performatively. Your presence begins to reveal what others have disowned in themselves. Some feel inspired, and some are going to feel enraged. Both reactions are information, and both reactions do not belong to you. Alan Watts said, "The most destabilizing thing you can do in a social game is stop pretending it isn't a game." Now, there is loneliness here sometimes. You can't unsee what you see. You can't go back to unconscious belonging. But something else happens. You become good company for yourself. Jung believed that individuation ultimately becomes a relationship with the self, a deeper intelligence that guides without coercion. And from that place, connection becomes real again, not from need, from overflow. So as Valentine's Day approaches, this is the love I want to begin with. Not romance, not validation, but the love that ends the war inside. The love that stops negotiating your existence. The love that survives being called dangerous. This isn't perfection. It's wholeness. And if you're standing at the edge of this shift, if something in you is tired of performing safety, know this: you are not broken. You're integrating. There's nothing you need to take from this. There's nothing you need to take from this. Just let it be with you. I do hope these words have resonated because they come from my heart. They come through what I am and have gone through. Today, we didn't talk about a love that's about romance. but about the love that changes everything. The love that stops abandoning itself, that ends cycles, simply because it's whole. Thank you for joining me on episode 19. Let's keep going on this journey together.
Thank you for allowing the Love Lounge podcast to be a part of your day. There's nothing you need to take from this. Just let it be with you. If you'd like to explore more, you can find more about Lara at laradoughty.com or raisedbyfire.com and follow Lara on Instagram at the Lara Doughty. The light is on. Our door stays open.